Evening. We thank you for joining again. Again, we are recording your statements, we're listening, and appreciate you being here. Um, some of the prompts that we have for folks if needed, especially if folks are here who maybe decide you want to speak but didn't come with written remarks, is just some of the things we'd like to hear about are what expenses are most difficult for you or families that you work with to afford? What kinds of programs and benefits have the biggest impact for families? What changes would you like to see to make programs easier to access? Um, and so those are the kinds of things we'd like people to focus on, and ideas that you have about both policy changes, investments to reduce child poverty, but also changes that we can make to make the benefits and services easier for folks to access. Um, so we have a special guest that Kate will introduce that will be helping us call up the speakers. We do ask that folks do their best to keep their remarks to 3 minutes or less, so that we do have an opportunity to hear from everyone who has signed up to speak.
Thank you. And we are going to time, but please, if we're not super strict around timing. um, and I'm very excited to introduce the Reverend West McNeil from the Cairo Center, who is also a member of the Schuyler Center board, who's going to help by calling people up and letting each person know who's going to be next as well.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and especially for those of you who are going to take this opportunity to share your experiences and your insights. Yes, I'm just gonna try to keep us moving through this list here, and I'll let you know if you're on deck as well. So the first up, we're gonna hear from Kyle from NYSET, and then Linda, you are on deck.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you very much for having me. I'm Kyle Belickett, the legislative director of New York State United Teachers. And I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, especially in this beautiful building. 1 in 5 of your children lives in poverty. More than 760,000 children carry that burden into our classrooms every day. Black, Latino, Native American children experience poverty at more than twice the rate of white children. Now in schools, 56% of our children qualify for free reduced price lunch. And this is New York, the 10th largest economy on earth. And in 2026, 1 in 5 children in poverty is not a tragedy, it is a choice. And official poverty numbers dramatically undercut the crisis. By the Alice measure, more than half of New York schools and students and households can't afford the basics. More than half of full-time workers in the state don't earn enough to support one adult and one school-aged child. And it's everywhere. The counties with the highest child poverty rates are not just Bronx and Brooklyn, they're rural counties like Oswego and Cattaraugus, and suburban counties like Rockland. In Syracuse, nearly half of all children, 48% of them live in poverty. The second highest rate in any large city in America. Rochester, Buffalo, Binghamton, and Troy all sit above 40%. And what do educators see each and every day in our school buildings? Children living in poverty in our rural, in our suburban, and our urban school districts, whether or not their neighbors recognize it. Our educators too, each and every morning, every corner of their state and their classrooms. We see the student who misses a week of school because he had no clean clothes. The 9-year-old who stays home to protect his mother in a house with doors that won't lock. The high school student who misses their own bus because she is the caretaker of her family. She has younger siblings on their bus. These are just a few of the real stories we hear from teachers each and every day. If a child is afraid about the next meal or where they will sleep tonight, they cannot find academic success. Not with the best teachers, in the best schools, in the best districts in the country, and dare I say, we find most in New York. Food insecurity, unstable housing, missed medical care, shut-off notices, shame and stigma that surround all of this means that children in poverty start miles behind their peers, even before they walk through our doors and hopefully universal free classrooms. Educators and community organizations those found in this room tonight, we fill these gaps every day out of their own pockets and their own budgets and their own time. We should not have to run a safety net on the personal generosity of teachers and non-for-profits and community members. We need a system that formalizes and funds this work. But sometimes things work really well anymore. When New York chooses to feed every child, it works. Starting this school year, all 2.7 million students in New York State receive a free breakfast and lunch, no phones, no stigma, and about $165 a month back in the family's pockets per child. We all fought for it, and we won. And we need continued investments in like SNAP and WIC and food insecurity programs. New York has committed to this law to cut child poverty in half by 2031. But commitments on paper only matter if we keep investing in what works. And what we do know that works in education is our community schools. Community schools turn buildings into what they already are in practice, the center of community life, with wraparound services matched to local need, food pantries, dental and vision exams, mental health care, laundry, housing help, adult education. These services are for whole families, not just children. And they work everywhere. In Albany and New York City, as an example, we have transportation help, we have healthcare access, and on-site learning. In rural Illinois, a stigma-free community hall stocked with food and hygiene supplies across Herkimer and Madison and United counties, on-site mental health support systems, and helps the family navigate complex systems through social services. The results speak for themselves. New York City's original community schools saw graduation rates climb 25 percentage points over a decade, more than double the citywide average. And the return is extraordinary. In New York City, every $100,000 invested in a community school generates more than $600,000 back in services and rates. In Central New York, the return exceeds $14 for every $1 invested. NYSEG has been advocating, along with many partners in this room, the state to invest $100 million in categorical aid to expand community schools statewide. So meeting a student's basic need is no longer a matter of luck. It's not a matter of zip code. It's not a matter of personal, a teacher's wallet, or a family's wallet, or a non-for-profit wallet. And in closing, we cannot end child poverty tonight. But the wealthiest and the wealthiest nation in the history of our great country and world, child poverty is unacceptable. And we know how to fix this because we're doing it already in pockets of our state and it is working. Poverty is not inevitable. It is adult policy choices, and New York has everything it needs to choose better. Together, the people in this room, with your guidance and leadership, we can end child poverty and make a difference in every child in New York State, in our school buildings, their homes, and community. Thank you so much. Know that NYSEG stands ready to do this work with you.
Thank you, Kyle. Welcome up, Linda and Ryan. Healy, you are on deck.
Hi, I'm Linda Nipper. I'm a community volunteer in downtown Schenectady. Thank you for hosting this, and I want to thank all the warriors that are here in the audience that are grinding this out every day, all day. When I saw this event and the child poverty title came up, the image that always permanently appeared in my mind is the view of the children that are playing in the hot parking lots of the GSS hotels that I and several others buy or go by every day. The heat, the hot weather, rain, snow, and they're playing whatever they have access to as a tour. The particular hotel that I go by almost every day, the only shade is between the large gondola and the small gondola. So that's their choice. Part of my work that I do, I don't consider it work, I do it. And the community meals sites are that I see more and more families every time I'm there to volunteer. It's not small numbers, it's just overwhelming 3, 4, 5 children in the family unit, if you will, that are coming in for the meals. And I see the same families at different meal sites wherever they're available. So the need is real. It's just, there's no way that anyone, let alone a child, can come out of those situations without being traumatized. So we can do better, we've seen it, and we must do better for them. They are leaders of tomorrow, and starting without any kind of basis is just not good. Just not. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Ryan. And next up is going to be Dan from Oakwood.
We'll use this mic. We're gonna wait for your- Okay. Actually, we're gonna. Sure. Yeah. Here. Switch it.
Thank you, Commissioner Gwynn, Kate, Schuyler Center, CPRAC, and really everyone who's here today, committed to the idea that no child in New York should be growing up in poverty. My name is Ryan Healy. I'm the Government Relations Manager with Hunger Solutions New York. We're a statewide organization committed to alleviating hunger and helping New York families access federal anti-hunger nutrition programs like SNAP WIC and much more. The reason I'm here, I wanted to share that over the past month, Hunger Solutions New York, in partnership with many organizations in the anti-hunger community, have launched a survey of advocates, organizations, and individuals about what are some of the ways that New York State can most meaningfully address hunger, poverty, and food insecurity, understanding the interconnection between all. And just to report back, 90% of survey respondents, we had 250 responses from around the state, from food pantries and food banks, community-based organizations. We had WIC advocates, we had anti-poverty activists, we had community members. And 90% said that what New York State must prioritize in this year ahead is reducing the cost of living, the cost of housing, the cost of food, healthcare, childcare. All of these costs, which are eating out of the same budget for families, are really driving the uptick in hunger and food insecurity that we're seeing around the state. Also on the list in terms of priorities was making sure that New York families can continue to access SNAP and WIC. Of course, SNAP is one of the nation's most effective anti-poverty programs, but unfortunately, due to the federal cuts, ABOD work reporting rules will now unfortunately apply to households with children for the first time. So really making sure that our network of SNAP navigators, which we're excited to partner on the rollout of nutrition navigators, making sure that families across the state have access to high quality information, plain language support, and support in various languages is incredibly important and will help us mitigate some of the harm from HR 1. Also on the list was making sure that New York families can continue to access WIC. We have today about 200,000 eligible but not enrolled families, and while our state has made really significant progress in boosting participation in WIC, we still have many families who are not enrolled in the program, and we have local agencies who are operating with nearly flat funding over the last decade despite the surge in participation. Also on the list, it was unequivocal support for supporting food banks and pantries, knowing that some families may not qualify for SNAP and WIC, may still need additional support, but this network through HIPNAP and Nourish New York is vitally important. And also on the list is making sure that families on the other end of the equation have enough income, making sure we're looking at our wage system, expanding tax credits, and ultimately putting more dollars into the pockets of New York families. So I'm excited to share some of this. We really appreciate the partnership and look forward to hearing from some of the powerful community members after.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, Dan, and Aldo, you'll be up next.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Dan. I run the Oakwood Community Center Food Pantry. I think I can repeat probably what most people are thinking, that the culture of poverty in this country and in this state is criminal, and its effects on children is downright evil. I'm speaking also as someone who works frontline with people every single week. I know we hear a lot of statistics, but I have a lot of stories because I deal with people every single week. And food that we're giving out is a bare minimum. I know that basically we're talking about our Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Our children cannot get any higher in any type of way without these needs being met, without safe housing, without food, without safety. They cannot reach the lofty goals that we would love for them. Let's see where I'm at here. Yeah, I mean, what we're dealing with every week down in Oakwood, and I'm sure every pantry's like this, we're not just dealing with hunger, we're dealing with systemic poverty, we're dealing with cyclical trauma. We are dealing with families who are continually trying to deal. We're dealing with families who are dealing with gentrified neighborhoods, which even though these are great helping them pay for the rent, this rent is still going for buildings that are derelict and in poor repair, are dangerous, and are continually being bought, and the rent's being raised. So people are continually having to make a fight to what they can do. And that's what our pantries are for. Hey, here's some food, keep your heat on, and try to go for a couple more days. The narrative that poor people are lazy or slovenly or just trying to get something free is infuriating, and it's something that is extremely difficult to deal with. So anything we can do, especially making wording to be easy but also dignified, because I hear too often that people are going through systems to try to get aid, and they're made to feel lesser than, they're made to feel embarrassed, they're made to feel like it's a gotcha thing, like you're trying to get away with something where we're getting you. And that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable to do to other human beings. There are definitely forces out there, oppressors who are trying to separate us by race and by sexuality, by gender, by class, by every possible way to imagine, because they know that we are weaker separated and we are stronger together. And we as a people also need to start seeing poor children, all children, every child as our children, that they are not separate by any means, and we need to look out for all of them. It is our duty as human beings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Aldo, and then we'll have Sister Betsy.
Hello, my name is Aldo Juarez Romero, and I serve as Executive Director of Sycamore Collaborative, a food access nonprofit based in Schenectady with nearly 60 years of history rooted in community service. Thank you to everyone who helped organize tonight's hearing, and to this council for making space for people doing the work and living the reality to speak directly to you. I want to ground my testimony in numbers, because behind every number is a family. In our last fiscal year, ending in June 30th, Sycamore Collaborative received over 25,000 visits, impacting over 66,000 individuals across 5 of our main points of access, which is food pantry, mobile pantries, home deliveries, satellite sites, and summer meals throughout Schenectady. Together, that represents over 1 million meals distributed to our neighbors in Schenectady. Of the people we serve, just over half were adults, but more than quarter, over close to 20,000, were children. Right now, we're in the middle of our summer meals program running across 9 sites throughout the city. In just the week since the program began this summer, we have already distributed 5,000 meals to kids who will otherwise go without reliable food during the very months when school breakfast and lunch are not available to them. Summer is when child hunger becomes more visible and more urgent. I'm not sharing these numbers for praise, but because these numbers tells you something about need. Families are allowed to access our services up to twice a month, and many of them do, month after month. That is not a coincidence. That is the clearest evidence I can give you that hunger in our community is not a once-in-a-while emergency, but ongoing. It is the same families returning again and again because the gap between what they earn and what they need hasn't closed. And when SNAP benefits are disrupted, delayed, or reduced, those are the first place families turn. We are not a substitute for a strong public safety net. We are what fills the gap when the net has holes in it. And right now the gap is getting bigger, not smaller. This council has already recommended investing in food assistance, housing, and childcare as core strategies to reduce child poverty. I am here to tell you that that recommendation is correct and is urgent. Continue and expanding funding for programs like HIPNAP and Nourish New York doesn't just stock our shelves. It determines whether a child in Schenectady eats dinner tonight or not. I ask this council to keep 3 things in mind as you shape your next round of recommendations. Number 1, protect and grow direct food assistance funding. Number 2, support community-based organizations who are already doing the last mile work of getting food to families. And number 3, ensure the summer and out-of-school time meal programs are treated as essential infrastructure, not as optional extras. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aldo, Mrs. Betsy, and Jay. You are going to be up next.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Sister Betsy Van Duzen, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Albany. We serve 14 counties, 78,000 people every year, covering 10,000 square miles. Our staff has the privilege of walking alongside families who are doing everything they can to provide a safe, stable, and hopeful future for their children. I'm here tonight because child poverty is not simply a statistic. Behind every number is a child, a parent, a family, and a story. We see firsthand how interconnected the challenges facing families are. A family may come to us because they need food, but underneath that need may be an unaffordable rent, unreliable transportation, inadequate childcare, an unexpected medical bill, or a parent who is working but still cannot make ends meet. When those challenges pile up, children feel the impact. If we are serious about reducing child poverty, I believe we have to look at the whole family and address the barriers, and certainly the recommendations begin to do that. That means access to housing, nutritious food, quality childcare, transportation, healthcare, education, and employment that actually allows a family to support itself. We also need to recognize that many families living in poverty are working families. Having a job does not necessarily mean having enough to provide the basics. We need policies and systems that help families move from simply surviving to actually becoming stable, self-sufficient. We also need applications that are easier to understand and complete. At Catholic Charities, we believe strongly in meeting people where they are, but we also know that charitable organizations cannot solve poverty alone. We need government, nonprofits, businesses, schools, faith communities, and families themselves at the table together. Most importantly, we need to listen to families. They are the experts in their own lives. They know what is working, what is not working, and what barriers are keeping them from moving forward. Every child deserves the opportunity to grow up feeling safe, supported, and hopeful about their future. Reducing child poverty is not just about improving statistics. It is about changing the trajectory of children's lives. I am grateful that we are having this conversation, and more importantly, creating opportunities for people who serve families every day to be a part of it. I hope tonight is not simply a hearing, but a step toward meaningful action. Because when we invest in children and families, we are investing in the future of all New York. Thank you for allowing me to share our perspective and for your commitment to this important work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Betsy. Is Jay? Great. And then we're going to go to Adam. And then Natasha after that.
Thank you. The downside of being tall, you need the microphone a little higher. Thank you so much for having this hearing today. My name is Jason Frank. I'm a New Yorker, and I'm also a member of an organization called the National Parents Organization. We are a shared parenting advocacy group. We advocate for shared parenting policies in family court on the custody side as well as the support side. I want to comment on how greater family economic security can be achieved by amending New York's child support guidelines to include a parenting time adjustment. In New York, parents who pay support are presumed to pay the same basic obligation whether they have their child 50% of the time or are completely uninvolved, leaving one of the child's homes under-resourced. New York is one of only 5 states whose child support guidelines do not clearly consider child-rearing expenditures in both homes when calculating a basic support obligation. This leaves one home in a state of perpetual financial insecurity. Child support is intended to protect children from becoming the economic victims of their parents living apart, but when one home is under-resourced, that child is still victimized. A comparative analysis of New York's child support guidelines found that obligor parents in New York are directed to pay significantly more than similarly situated parents in states like New Jersey, Maryland, or California, 6 to 7 times the amount than in California. For example, if two parents living in separate homes had 3 children and 50-50 custody, with one parent having yearly gross income of $50,000 and the second parent $40,000, New York guidelines direct the obliger parent to pay a base obligation of approximately $13,390 a year. Once you factor in taxes, New York's guidelines place this family's income below $33,000 a year, which is the federal poverty level for a family of 4. In New York, if the obliger parent then works extra to lift the home out of poverty, the other parent can ask for additional support once the change in income reaches 15% or there has been 3 years since the last order. The guidelines direct judges and magistrates to make new awards based on the new income. The obliger parent is trapped in a cruel cycle where they are deemed fit to be with their child but unworthy of retaining sufficient resources to care for that child. Now, if this family lived in New Jersey, Maryland, or California, the basic support obligation would be $4,264, $2,064, or $1,680 respectively. The National Parents Organization has drafted a legislative proposal for New York that will result in a more stabilizing award amount of $2,058. This number reflects the economic realities of both of the child's homes, creating more economic security for the overall unintact family. New York is aware of parenting time adjustment. In 1998, the New York Court of Appeals dealt with the issue of child support and shared parenting. The court said the difficult policy, the choices inherent in creating an offset formula for shared custody arrangements are better left to the legislature. It's been 30 years and there's been no response. Additionally, New York's child support program is a federal-state partnership where 66% of the outlays for child support services plus efficiency bonuses are paid by the federal government and require state guidelines to be reviewed every 4 years, with New York making reports from these reviews available to the public, which can be found on OTDA's website. Page 85. Sorry, here. I wasn't sure if there's going to be a podium. Page 85 of the 2018 report explicitly recommends New York State to adopt a parenting time adjustment. The 2022-2023 report on page 55 recommends on earning capacity, clarification on earning capacity of the custodial parent, the non-custodial parent's visitation expenses, and what a non-custodial parent could reasonably pay but still be fair and adequate. In essence, a parenting time adjustment. The federal government promotes the use of parenting time adjustments as evidenced by the availability of 1115 waivers, allowing OCSE to waive certain program requirements to promote the objectives of the child support program and improve outcomes for children. The second listed example on their website is fatherhood, motherhood, co-parenting supports. In New York, a disproportionate number of under-resourced and minority children live in unintact homes. New York's rigid approach to support calculations creates an increasingly classic and racially punitive approach to establishing child support. A parenting time adjustment promotes family economic security by recognizing the realities of children spending time in multiple homes. Now, I encourage this council to recommend New York to adopt a parenting time adjustment, which would be consistent with the guidelines and the recommendations already made to OTDA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Shakarjan. I'm a 33-year-old disabled retired veteran. I'm also a member of the local chapter of the National Union of the Homeless, the local chapter of the Poor People's Campaign, and I'm a graduate of the Schenectady County Community Advocates Program. So I'm a 33-year-old disabled retired veteran who has been homeless twice, and I'm here to talk to you all about the importance of considering developmental health when tackling child poverty. I'm what is called twice exceptional. It means I'm both severely neurodivergent, I have both ASD and ADHD severely, and intellectually gifted. And the lack of diagnostic care, as well as the lack of support resources, is one of the largest factors that sent me on the dysfunctional trajectory that I followed. This is not unique to me. As a society, we have created a pipeline for neurodivergent children, particularly young males, that puts the burden of their dysfunction on the child, often forcing them in a pipeline that leads directly into the military, jail, prison, and/or homelessness. I've experienced all three. I grew up in a family that worked ourselves out of poverty and into the middle class, but we still weren't financially comfortable enough to spend extra money on our developmental health. My high school experience was a nightmare of skipped classes, missed assignments, and behavioral problems that amounted to constant detentions and numerous suspensions. But since I excelled at school despite that, when screened by the school psychologist, I was deemed too smart to have ADHD or autism despite having numerous behavioral symptoms. And therefore, my behavior was blamed on me as an individual. This continued to go unaddressed until I was 25 years old and stationed in a combat zone, where the Navy used its limited resources to accurately diagnose my ADHD because it was affecting my ability to perform my duties that were critical to national defense. Even then, I only got tested because I could not be replaced in my job. And this process set the precedent for others to get tested and treated for ADHD while deployed in combat zones. Fast forward past 3 suicide attempts, a medical retirement, 2 periods of homelessness, and an arrest, all of which directly stem back to not being properly tested or treated as a child. It was only then, when I had an appointment at the VA, where I was finally diagnosed with autism severe enough to warrant a part-time aide. If and when I do get an aide, that currently means that a child might not get one because of the way the current system is set up and the limits on aides for people who are autistic. There are barracks, cell blocks, shelters, and graveyards filled with people whose stories are just like mine. People who were children and people who have children. This includes 4 friends that I've lost over the past several years, including 3 vets and 1 orphan. Of the 5 of us, all 4 of them had children. Many of them, as well as their children, displayed developmental health issues and have even been treated for some. I'm here today because if developmental health issues aren't caught early, or if you don't have the wealth of resources to get tested, it can lead to a downhill spiral that blames the individual rather than the system. Propositions like the autism screening mandate 2025 A7204, which mandates pediatric screening between the ages of 1 and 6 and 11, and again at the ages of 11 and 14, would make a significant difference in addressing this problem. I propose specifically expanding the screening to ADHD as well, and offering tax credits and other benefits for families to compensate for the financial impact of having to meet the needs of a neurodivergent child. And on that note, the National Union of the Homeless, which is local here in Albany, and I have flyers for it, is having a barbecue next week on the 27th. And just everybody's welcome. And if anybody you know needs a meal on Thursday between 11 and 1, come see me and I'll hand you a flyer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Natasha Pernica, and it's my honor to be here tonight to represent the Alliance for Hunger-Free New York. We are a member-driven coalition of frontline food providers across New York State, serving 35 counties and growing, with a network of more than 250 organizations. Our vision is a hunger-free New York. Here in New York's capital region, last year, more than 70 food pantries in the Food Pantry for the Capital Districts Coalition served families with more than 35,631 children. This was a 4% increase over 2024. While 4% might not seem like a significant increase, this came on top of a 56% increase in the number of children served from 23 to 24. In 2025, these 35,000 children received assistance for more than 573,000 times. This is just one snapshot of what food insecurity looks like in New York. New York State is experiencing a continued crisis in food insecurity. Released in December of 2025, the USDA 2024 food insecurity stats show that New York State is at 14% food insecurity, meaning households don't have consistent access to or resources for healthy food. It's higher than the United States average. It equates to nearly 1 in 7 New Yorkers and 1 in 5 children. Households with children, people of color, and people in rural communities experience even higher food insecurity rates. In conjunction with the dramatic 39% rise in grocery inflation across New York from 2019 to 2025, affordability is a critical issue. The pressure on direct providers like food pantries to meet these needs is immense, Not only is it more expensive for families to shop at the grocery store, it's more expensive to keep pantry shelves stocked with healthy and nutritious food. People seeking food assistance in the surveys that we have done tell us consistently that they need more proteins and meat, dairy, and fresh produce from their local community food pantries. We are past the point of hunger being a short-term emergency. Not having enough nutritious food to eat impacts health conditions, school performance, and difficult decisions between paying for food, medications, transportation, household bills, and more. We all know this. With federal changes to SNAP and other federal nutrition security programs, we will continue to see increased pressure on our food pantries and other community-based feeding programs filling the gaps. Families need access to resources for food. It's been brought up multiple times tonight. The New York State Food Connect map, which was developed in 2020 as a result of COVID emergency, helps connect families in one spot to food pantries, community meals, SNAP, WIC, farmers markets that accept SNAP, summer meal sites, congregate meal sites, and more. Please, we ask the state to help us share this resource with as many people as possible so that they can have as many resources as possible to keep food on the table. Last year, we saw a more than 180% increase in the use of the map over the prior year, and it's being used in 50 counties currently across the state. We appreciate your leadership on this critical issue and are grateful for your work to reduce child poverty. All children and their caregivers deserve to have nutritious food on the table every day.
Good evening, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk to you, Commissioner Gwynn, Kate Breslin. My name is Susan Antos. I'm the managing attorney of the benefits team at the Empire Justice Center. We're a support center for legal aid and legal services offices. And because I focus on benefits, I know the importance of the work you're doing, and I want to start off by thanking you for, number one, putting chip cards on the fast track. I can't tell you how devastating it is to get calls, and we got scores of them from people who went to the store and discovered their benefits had been stolen. I also want to thank you for a number of smaller reforms that you've made, particularly with increasing earnings disregards, increasing resource limits, things that make it a little easier for people to get out of poverty. Today I'm going to address 4 things and of course ask you to do a little bit more. I would like you, I know you've extended the earnings disregards in many generous ways for applicants. I'm here to ask that working people who are poor get that extended when they apply for public assistance. Also increase the resource limit for public assistance eligibility. I'd like you to continue and improve the baby bonus and also apply the New York City rules for the penalties when people lose their benefits because they don't comply with public assistance work rules, to make those rules statewide. Right now, we have a generous earnings disregard for public assistance recipients who work of 65% of their earnings. That percentage does not apply to applicants. People are struggling, and if they just have a little bit to hang on to and need public assistance, we urge you to expand the earnings disregard to applicants as well as recipients. We'd also ask you to eliminate the resource limits. That sounds very radical. Right now it's $2,500 for applicants, $10,000 for recipients, but it's a practical matter. Unless they win the lottery or get an inheritance, most recipients are not going to be able to take advantage of that resource limit. The people I see who could use an expanded resource limit are people who have worked, lost their job, have small savings or small retirement accounts. and have to cash them in as a condition of becoming eligible for public assistance. It might surprise you, but 9 states, including Colorado, Hawaii, Illinois, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Ohio, and Virginia, have eliminated their resource rules entirely. At least 13 additional states, which I won't go through, have exempted at least retirement accounts. And the interesting thing is that the data that's coming back from those states that have done that have not shown additional costs because, first of all, the assets that low-income people have are not huge. But secondly, they've actually shown savings in terms of administrative costs because people have to document their resources. One of your goals is getting rid of paperwork. Having to find your statements of how much your retirement account is worth delays your application and ends up you're being told you have to spend it before you become eligible for public assistance. Then you have no cushion at all. If the car breaks down, the washing machine breaks, you need transportation because your car broke down, you have nothing to rely on. So again, we'd ask that you repeal the resource rule. At the very least, make the resource rule the same for applicants as it is for recipients, $10,000. We're thrilled about the baby bonus that provides support for newborns in their first year, and thank CPRAC for supporting that. We'd urge CPRAC to expand that by including a diaper allowance for all children eligible for temporary assistance up to the age of 3 years. The baby bonus only goes for the age of 3, regardless of whether or not the mother is eligible for public assistance. So if you have a disabled mom on SSI, right now, it's not going to trigger the baby bonus. If you have a non-parent caregiver, a grandparent, it's not going to trigger the baby bonus. Diapers are a need until you're 3 years old, at least, usually. And so we would encourage that there be a diaper allowance for people not eligible for the baby bonus. I understand the baby bonus is generous, intended to cover diapers, but if people are not eligible for it because they're on SSI or because they're a non-parent caregiver or they have a child over the age of 1, that you consider a diaper allowance. Finally, I want to address the problem with welfare sanctions. Outside the city of New York, as you know, there are something called durational welfare sanctions, which means that a person on public assistance can lose their benefits for up to 180 days, depending on the number of times they've been sanctioned before, if they fail to comply with a work rule. In 2015, the state changed this rule, but only for New York City. The intent of the original bill was to change it statewide. It was to give everyone a second chance. So what happens in New York City is if you are about to get sanctioned because you didn't show up at your job site, you get an opportunity to try again, to get a second chance and get your benefits back. That doesn't exist outside the city of New York, and we would urge the state to consider extending that to the rest of the state now. It is particularly critical to start thinking about doing that now when we have, as a previous speaker mentioned, work requirements being expanded for SNAP recipients and effective January 1st, work requirements being expanded to Medicaid recipients. We don't know because we haven't seen the rule for Medicaid, but the effects of sanctions on these populations should always give them the opportunity to cure across all the public benefit systems. We'd like people to be given a second chance instead of the harsh penalties that they're given now. Thank you again for the opportunity of letting me speak.
Thank you, Susan.
After Dustin, we're gonna.
Hi, Reverend Dustin Royd. I am the pastor at Messiah Lutheran Church in Rotterdam, New York, and the interim executive director at the Rotterdam Community Center. I am also the advocacy chair for the upstate New York Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, so I hold a few different hats. We have about, I think, 7 or 8 of our community advocates from the Rotterdam Community Center joining you here today, a number of whom spoke, whom we've trained in public advocacy and public speaking skills. So it's really wonderful for y'all to be here listening to the stories that we're telling from predominantly, but not exclusively, Schenectady County. Just a few things I wanted to share. So the Rotterdam Community Center exists in a town that is actually, the poverty rate is quite low. But the ALICE threshold is extremely high. And I think these are some folks who are being especially hit by the affordability crisis. Just to give you an idea, in the first 6 months of last year, we had 7,319 guests come to the doors of our Rotterdam Community Center for all sorts of different nutrition security programming. That's gone up to 10,440 guests the first months of this year. So that's a 43% increase. We've seen a lot of other, and not many of these folks are, it's seniors and it's young families. Those are the two populations. And, we're seeing lots of other things that are kind of just popping up more. More and more folks are, this summer, as it's been really hot, after they've been getting their groceries, they've been staying the whole time because they can't afford to turn the AC on in their homes. So there's a lot of deep need there. And once again, in a town with a low poverty rate, we're about to launch a new program with our local school district to bring food for up to 60 kids that are already on the backpack program to have even more assistance. So it's really, really rough out there. And I think we just need a wide variety of very innovative different solutions to address these issues. I would support so much of what's already said, but as one of the faith leaders in the space, there's one more I have to lift up, and that is the Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act. So in our local situation, we had wanted to finance our community center by building a brand new community center with 2 stories of family affordable housing units for families above it. As soon as our town board found out about that, they downzoned our property to prevent us from doing so. In towns and cities, in probably every municipality in this state, there are faith communities that have way less people than they used to, way less money than they used to, still are operating over 2/3 of emergency food programs across the state in one way or another. And these are meeting spaces for young people, for families still to this day. And these are crumbling structures that could be reinvested in to build safe and affordable housing. I'm really thankful for some of the strides we've made in improving access and funding for affordable housing. But until we increase the funding stock, or excuse me, the housing stock in New York State as well, then we're going to be missing the point. And this is a way that does so, that allows us to build new centers of community in towns across our state that will benefit all of our families. So it's sort of a unique way that supposedly will bring up to 60,000 units of affordable housing, but will also have so many other benefits for children struggling in poverty in probably every municipality in the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, really short. Thank you. Okay, it could be the shortest person here. Thank you. So I agree with everything everyone has said, but I really want to bring up a different point. My name's Lori Shanks. I'm on the board of the Schuyler Center. I was a faculty member at the law school here for 30 years. What I want to talk about, and even you said in your remarks that these things are expensive. And when I talk to my friends, when I talk to my neighbors, when I talk to different people, they say, oh, well, of course we think every child should have food. We think every child should have quality healthcare, but we just can't afford it. It's just too expensive. And I would like to talk about, just from a criminal justice standpoint, the idea that, well, if you don't spend the money, you're going to be saving the money is nonsense. I mean, if you don't spend the money at the front end, you are going to be spending it at the middle end and at the end. I had clients, I was a public defender for years, and then I did criminal defense. I have been a prosecutor. I've been a pro tem judge. If you do not have quality housing, if you don't have food, if you don't have diapers, if you don't have these things, people still need them. It's not like, well, if we don't have money for that, well, then the baby doesn't need to be changed. So what happens is that the mom or the dad goes and they now lock up formula. They lock up diapers. They lock them up because people are stealing them. And they're stealing them because the baby still, sorry, shits in his diaper, whether they have a stipend or not. And so the parent is frantic. The mom who is working at Walmart and has no days off and has no maternity leave and has no paid leave leaves the baby or leaves the 7-year-old to take care of the baby and is then charged with endangering the welfare of a child. Someone who has to drive to get to their job but can't afford insurance is driving on a suspended license. And then it piles up, and then the person goes to jail. And the child who wasn't being taken care of because mom or dad had 3 jobs, or there was no dad but mom had 3 jobs, is now in foster care. And when she gets out of foster care, as Kate knows, I have ranted more than I should to the Schuyler board. We don't provide any services, so then she has a baby. And she still doesn't have any services, and more importantly, she doesn't have the skills to represent it. So you have the cost of the prosecutor, you have the cost of the defense attorney, you have the cost of the probation department, you have the cost of the jail, you have the cost of the police department. You have all of these costs that never get factored in. So when we're over here in this little group and we say, well, this is too expensive, we can't possibly pay a living wage. We can't possibly give a diaper stipend that will actually be enough diapers for the child. You know, we just talk about it as if we don't put that amount of money in, we've saved it. And what I would like is when you are doing these policy proposals and someone says to you, well, it's too expensive, then I want you to be able to say, well, actually, you know what? This will save a tremendous amount of money. If we keep kids in school and we make sure that they can get jobs when they get out, if we make sure that you don't have to break in order to get formula so that your baby doesn't starve, we will actually save money by doing the things that everyone's talked about today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. And after Marina is going to be Kayla.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marina Marco O'Malley. I am the co-executive director of the Alliance for Quality Education. We're a statewide advocacy and community organization, coalition of community groups. And actually, this is the perfect setup for me because I 100% agree with what Lori just said, with everything that everybody has said. AQE, along with Schuyler Center and a lot of other groups, works on childcare, on universal childcare, and we're very happy that that is very much front and center today. And I am very thankful of the work that the council has done and the recommendations that you put forward. I will also say that as a mom, I've seen, as a young mom, I've experienced what childcare does for children. And I've also seen what happens to those educators when we do not pay them enough. Because it is not only our children, are the parents, the parents like me and others who need access to childcare. It is also the children of the educators working in the childcare field that need access to childcare. And the best way to eliminate child poverty, because those children, take my word for it or don't take my word for it, the data shows it, also live in poverty because the educators who work and care for our kids make less than everybody else in this state and in this nation. So if we do not actually invest in those educators, pay them more, then their children cannot actually get out of poverty. So Lori mentioned, if we do not, I have prepared remarks, so I'm not reading them because of that. Lori mentioned that if it's too expensive, we're saving money. We are not. We are making the choice of condemning people in poverty. And we're making the choice that we are not going to raise the revenue that we need and actually to invest in all the services that people need. Because how do you choose on whether feeding a child, buying diapers, paying the electric bill, having enough clothing, how do you, having access to healthcare, how do you make those choices? How does one choose what is more valuable than another? And the fact is that we do not have to do that. We do not actually have to make the choice. We can, in the state of New York, raise enough money, raise enough revenue to provide all the services that our New Yorkers need, including all of the recommendations that you mentioned that we would love to see happen, and more, and access to housing, and access to healthcare and mental health, and all of those things that actually make New York the great place to be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Kayla, welcome you to come up here, and then after Kayla is Nick.
That was a really long walk. Hi, my name is Kayla. I am the Legislative Affairs Community Engagement Specialist with the Alliance for Quality Education alongside Marina. But I'm here as a parent. I have my daughter here with me for moral support. I want to start off with saying that I echo everyone here. All of these things and suggestions you have made make sense and are needed. But coming from my personal experience, I am the mother of 3. I lived in Albany basically my entire life. And I have utilized every single one of these programs, maybe not the programs as they are today, but I have utilized SNAP. I have been in public housing. I have had Medicaid. I have needed childcare assistance. I've been on the CPRAC program. And the one thing for me that still to this day, now that I am no longer on any of those programs, that I cannot afford is childcare. Over 80% of New Yorkers cannot afford childcare, so it's not just a poverty problem, it is a statewide problem regardless of how much money you make. And to the point of, if you need to afford these public assistance, or you need to afford, food and public utilities, you need childcare to work. Just plain and simple. And to Marina's point, and as Legislative Affairs of Alliance for Quality Education, I echo the need for our provider workers' compensation. Our providers are making on average $7 an hour. So they are also in need of this support. And we cannot rely on them to take care of our children when the CCAP eligibility is growing and the demand is growing, but the pay is not growing. And so therefore the workers are actually reducing. We have a shortage of workers because there's no incentive to work. Everyone is trying to survive at this moment. So I want to just say that I think that one of the most important things right now is our childcare workforce, as well as just childcare in general, universal childcare really. And then I also just wanted to make one other note that I noticed. One of your slides had mentioned what changes would make programs easier to access. And I do agree, as someone, again, who had to access all of those programs, documentation was daunting. Very daunting. The language used, all of that I agree with, but one thing that I feel is often ignored is reducing the stigma that is attached to actually accessing these programs. And not just for the folks that aren't accessing it to get them on board, but people are not accessing it because they don't want to go to DSS and ask for help, because it's embarrassing, because society looks at you as you're lazy and you're not working and all of the things. So I feel like, I would love to see maybe an ad campaign, something that shows people that it's okay to ask for help. And right now in today's society, everyone needs help. So there shouldn't be a stigma attached to it. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. And after Nick is China.
Hi, I'm Nick Rangel. I'm the Executive Director at Legal Aid Society for Northeastern New York. Hi, Commissioner. Hi, Kate. LASNY is the legal service provider here in the Capital Region. We cover 16 counties across upstate New York, from Columbia County to Canada and out to the St. Regis Mohawk Reservation. And I am here to talk about the connection between legal services and the ways that legal services help reduce child poverty. LASNY conducted a needs assessment last year, which confirmed not just a tremendous gap in access to legal services. Over 80% of people with legal needs go without legal help to address them. But we also found higher rates of poverty, increased rates of homelessness, increases in eviction filings, and increases in hunger and food insecurity issues across our service area. And the vast majority of our clients every year have children in the home. We closed over 9,000 cases last year and impacted over 18,000 individuals because of the number of children in the households that are receiving legal help. Eviction help is an outsized need. It's one of the highest requested or applied for services. But the second is DV family support, and the third is disability advocacy, largely in houses that are impacted by having children and children needs inside of the home. Most of our state funding is funding for eviction defense, which has been a tremendous investment by the state over the last several years. But rental arrears assistance is limited. Any legal aid in the state could use all of its rental assistance in weeks, not just months. That means that we go to court without the tool of helping the person actually catch up on their rental arrears. Section 8 and housing choice vouchers also lack adequate funding. We hear reports from DSS offices of severe staff shortages, which cause some offices to cap the number of applications it will accept in a day. They expend their funds and have multi-year wait lists for affordable housing. Rent is outpacing voucher values, and there is a tremendous lack of affordable housing available in any of our counties. The HAVP program, if it was fully funded, could really help stabilize households and entire communities. LASNY also assists households applying and getting approved for SNAP benefits and other public benefits. This allows us to provide wraparound services when we do meet those clients in outreach events and screen them for other legal needs. We know here from many of the other people who've testified that SNAP is woefully underfunded and dealing with federal cuts. We know that SNAP typically only covers about 30% of a household's food needs, even when somebody is approved. Recent data shows that those federal changes to SNAP and the rising cost of living have contributed to higher rates of hunger and food security, and we see that every day in our work. Each of these investments recommended by this council would reduce child poverty, but without legal services, many eligible households would face significant barriers to accessing those benefits and keeping those benefits through renewals and documentation requirements. We deal with incorrect or inappropriate denials. We assist people with the difficult barriers of submitting applications and staying renewed and meeting those deadlines. We assist with the distance to DSS locations and navigating difficult or limited office hours or tech requirements. We also find that there's a lack of awareness of programs and of individual rights. Most people who have a legal right that's been denied through the denial of a benefit application does not recognize that that is a legal issue that they could access legal services to help them address. All of the administrative barriers already shared by Empire Justice Center and my good friend Susan contribute to not just the cost of providing those benefits, but the cost of the legal need and the unmet need that goes across these counties. And with that, I would just say that LASNY stands ready to support and advance the recommendations made by the council by providing those wraparound legal services to help make sure that the rights that are expanded and the funding that is expanded gets to the people who need it most. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. After Tanya, we'll hear from Eden.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the Child Poverty Reduction Advisory Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Chanya Holness, and I am the Bring Up Minimum Pay, or BUMP, campaign manager at the New York Foundling. BUMP is a statewide anti-poverty campaign fighting to establish a wage floor of $29 per hour, along with annualized cost of living adjustments for nonprofit human service workers through legislation S8337A and A9082A. When we talk about reducing child poverty, we have to ensure that parents and caregivers in historically underpaid fields like human services are earning a living wage that allows them to support their children. Across New York State, human service workers like childcare workers, nursing assistants, home health aides, and others support the health and well-being of children, families, and communities. They connect communities to resources that address poverty, homelessness, food insecurity, and other systemic issues. But the people doing this essential work are often struggling to make ends meet themselves. According to the CUNY Institute for State and Local Governance, 42% of human service workers live in households with children. And among those with children, 80% are earning wages below the cost of living. As many as 34% of human service workers receive SNAP benefits, and up to 20% live below the federal poverty level. The average human service worker in New York State earns about $40,000 a year, but many, such as childcare workers and home health aides, earn even less on average, about $38,000 a year. These wages disproportionately impact women, people of color, and entry-level staff. $40,000 a year simply doesn't go far enough in New York State. The estimated cost of living for a single adult in the state is $60,000 per year, but even that rises in households with children. For example, in households with one adult and two children, the cost of living is more than double and rises to $91,000. So for many children, having parents who work doesn't always mean being able to escape poverty. When parents don't earn enough to afford housing, food, childcare, healthcare, and other basic needs, their children feel the consequences. Research clearly shows that family income affects child health and development, with higher wages translating to better access to quality education, healthcare, childcare, and other resources. We can't expect to reduce child poverty while parents who work are unable to support their families. Raising wages within the human services sector means giving working parents a better chance to ensure their children do not grow up in poverty. According to CUNY ISLG, establishing a wage floor of $29 per hour could lift more than 100,000 workers out of poverty, and could also have impacts for the state, including $1 billion in increased state tax revenue and $23 billion in increased economic activity statewide from people spending in their local communities. To truly reduce child poverty and ensure children across New York State have access to the resources they need to thrive, we must invest in the people raising them and recognize living wages as a child poverty reduction strategy. We urge New York State and the Child Poverty Reduction Advisory Council to include fair anti-poverty wages for nonprofit human service workers as part of New York State Child Poverty Reduction Strategy. Thank you for your time and leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chanya. Eden, and then last but not least, Helen.
Good evening. Thank you for making yourselves available to the public. That's really awesome. Good to see you again, Ms. Gunn. My name is Hayden Schwartz. I am a resident of Schenectady. I'm a graduate of the Community Advocates Program at Rotterdam Community Center, lifelong New Yorker. I have worked with underserved youth as a runaway and homeless youth case manager here in Albany, as well as in childcare capacities in the Capital Region and in Brooklyn. First of all, it boggles my mind that we even have to have this conversation about child poverty. The fact that there are shelters that are designated for youth is something that kind of haunts my thoughts all the time. We're in the richest country on earth, and I was working in that shelter for 5 months and saw it go to capacity several times. When that line of work, virtually every single youth that was in the shelter was experiencing poverty and extensive trauma that was exacerbated by being in poverty. As a youth, Your brain is still developing and growing, and the younger a child is, the more impressionable their brain. A condition called complex post-traumatic stress disorder poses immense risks to a child well into adulthood and is often very difficult to treat. Complex PTSD develops when a child is exposed to long-term, repeated traumatic experiences, including growing up in poverty, and lacking the proper care and resources to mitigate the issues surrounding that. Complex PTSD causes brain injuries that are visible in brain scan images. The structure and key functions of the brain malform in children, including enlargement of the amygdala and shrinkage of the hippocampus, which infect the brain's alarm system and memory, as well as functional changes such as the overproduction of stress hormones that lead to a complete depletion of those hormones in adulthood, which are required to deal with the regular stresses of life and causes adults to function at a below normal capacity. I want to stress the urgency and significance of how our existing systems, as they function in the present day, serve as a catalyst for cultivating untold numbers of future and present generations of our youth that have a complete failure to thrive. The other litany of health complications that have a higher impact on the poor, including diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, eating disorders, depression, substance abuse, obesity, insomnia, and so on, as well as complex PTSD, should be a grave and major public health concern that receives the most attention and focus on elimination. If we don't change how we approach caring for youth and their families by providing actual long-form support that people need to gain real stability that lasts, we are guaranteeing ourselves that our population will progressively be getting sicker, more depressed, and we will have children turning into adults that have come to understand that the world forgot about them or just simply doesn't care. I say all these things both as someone that has been a provider of these services and as a product of intergenerational trauma and poverty for at least 3 generations that my family has been in this country. My parents, their parents, their parents never got the resources to address any of the trauma that surrounds growing up in poverty. And now I have struggled myself with, underemployment and lacking resources, not being able to access resources, and so on. Children and their families deserve not to grow up not worrying about where they're going to sleep or if they're going to eat. Children should not have to worry about working to support their family. Children should not have to grow up wondering or not ever knowing what it feels like to have a safe person or people in their lives. We shouldn't have to advocate for children and their families to have safe access to having their basic needs met or have a level ground where all people have the ability to live joyfully with stability under their feet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Helen. Thank you.
Hi, how you doing today, guys? Well, I'm Helen Wass. I suffer from food insecurity. It's funny because it's not something a way of life for me. It just happened. It just happened like a couple years ago. So I was always okay. And I'm getting by. I don't have children, so I didn't have to be concerned with that. I have a great job. I'm a teacher. And maybe that's a bad career choice. I don't know, because I don't make a lot of money, but I love what I do. And I always have my desk full of granola bars, drink boxes, and oatmeal, because I deal with high school kids, and they're always hungry. It's not my job to feed them, but they're hungry. And the only way you're going to get through to them and have them concentrate on what they're supposed to be doing is to feed them. If their bellies are full, they can concentrate better. And that's very important. They do need to keep their education. They need to finish school, not have to work or be thinking that they have to work in order to survive. That's our job as a parent. I'm not a parent. I have a black lab that eats a lot. But Jack will never go without. He eats better than me sometimes. But these kids should not be hungry. I know how it is to go to work hungry when I have to decide whether or not to put gas in the car or eat dinner that night. And usually the gas wins. So now I'm on to two meals I missed and having to be concentrating on my work. It's tough. These kids don't need to go to school hungry. It makes it harder for everybody, because they can't concentrate and they're not learning and they're getting themselves in trouble because that's what you do when you're in high school. I had a kid just last year ate my Greek yogurt. Now this is a high school boy. The other kids were starting to pick on him a little bit, but no one really messed with Johnny because he's a big boy, so they didn't get too far. But he ate that, and he really probably wanted a cheeseburger and fries, but he was that hungry that I gave him my yogurt, and that's, sad, because they do get picked on sometimes. Other kids see that. They don't need all that. High school's bad enough. Believe me, I want out. I'm done. I'm up for retirement, but it's tough for them. The peer pressure is horrible. Let's see. Oh, I like to leave you with a quote from Martin Luther King. As soon as I can get it in my hands. I have the audacity to believe people everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was our last speaker. Thank you so much to all of you for what you shared tonight. And I'm going to ask remind folks to please do fill out that form that they went over earlier so that we can also hear the comments about what you're facing. With that, I'll go back to our coaches.
Okay. With all sincerity, thank you all so much. Those were some really powerful testimonies. I think we learned a lot. Again, and to say the least, it inspired us to work even harder. And also just want to say thank you to each of you who obviously are working very hard to support people within your communities. So thank you.
Yeah. Second, what the commission said. And a big thanks to Reverend Wes McNeil for doing the choreography. A huge thanks to the Schuyler Center team who kind of did all the prep work and also the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance in the Governor's Office. And it's such a pleasure to work with Commissioner Gwynn, who is a public servant who cares deeply, and it shows. And really thank you to all of you. This, we're all in this work together, and we all do it because we care about it. There are other things we could be doing. And for me, it's been really important to hear from you all. And also, it's inspiring to know that, we can join hands and that we have people out there. And I hope you all feel the same, that we are in this together. And there are a lot more people out there who couldn't make it tonight, or, are out of town or caring for their children or whatever, who I think are also with us. And my plea and my urge is that we continue to make our voices heard, lift up each other's voices, because our elected leaders need to know that we're out there and that we care about these things. So thank you.
Thank you.